There were two children named Richard and Emmeline. At that time, they were on a ship with their father, Arthur. It turned out that their journey at that time was to San Francisco after the death of Emmeline's mother.
Encourage Emmeline.
I'm sorry, Father.
Then the two of them entered a room and found some photos belonging to Paddy. Then Paddy himself arrived and caught them both. He immediately beat Richard, but Emmeline tried to help him by biting Paddy's arm. Suddenly, the situation on the ship became uncontrollable after a fire broke out there. This also caused Arthur and his children to be separated because Emmeline and Richard were on different ships.
I can't see.
Now the two of them had to part with their father and found a nearby island. Paddy, seeing this, immediately headed to the island, and when they arrived, they immediately looked for food there.
It's land! Land!
They also immediately bathed in a small river while eating the bananas Paddy had found. Emmeline also found a barrel filled with rum. This certainly made Paddy very happy. But suddenly, Richard brought a human skull, which made Paddy very scared. They running with Paddy and immediately took them away from there.
Give me that! Wait!
Now they tried to monitor the ocean, hoping that Arthur's ship would pass by, but suddenly the innocent Emmeline ate a fruit, and Paddy was very panicked because the fruit Emmeline ate was very poisonous. He also warned her not to eat anything carelessly again. Now the three of them continue their lives there.
Come on, come on!
Dr. dug out of a cabbage patch. Uncle Arthur said she was dead and buried.
Paddy also did not forget to teach useful things to Richard and Emmeline so they could survive there.
The bathtub, this is the ocean.
In at the last count, I never set eyes on us. There you are!
One day, Paddy drank the rum they had previously found. He then walked around the beach until he found fresh meat on a rock. This made Paddy think that there was a tribe there. That's why Paddy asked Richard and Emmeline not to go far from there. He also said that there was a very scary ghost that would eat them if they went far from there. Paddy did this to keep them from going there. Then, a very drunk Paddy went swimming at the beach.
Good. Well, from now on, that's the law. On my pants, I never saw.
And the next day, Emmeline and Richard realized that Paddy had not returned for a long time. They immediately searched for him and saw Paddy stranded on the shore. This prompted them to try to reach him in their lifeboat.
There he is. He must have swum over there and got into his ear. He'll jump up with it on.
However, upon arriving, they were shocked to see Paddy dead. Richard tried to bring Emmeline back to the hut and bring some belongings from there before leaving the island.
We'll be all right. For a while.
The two of them finally found a new island. There, they began to do everything Paddy had taught them. Before they knew it, they had finally grown up. At that time, Richard tried to surprise Emmeline by giving her some pearls. Emmeline explained to Richard that she was always thinking about him. She kissed him as a sign of gratitude for giving her the pearls.
Look, just what I always wanted. Oh! Oh!
You did it all. These?
I found him in those little shells. Thank you.
That night, they both tried to celebrate Christmas together, even though they had forgotten the tune of the Christmas carol. They both continued to grow up, without the guidance and knowledge they should have. When Emmeline started menstruating, she panicked and asked Richard to help her immediately. This surprised Richard, who asked if Emmeline had any wounds, but instead of answering, Emmeline, who was emotionally unstable, asked Richard to leave. Then Emmeline seemed fascinated by Richard's body. This was probably because Emmeline was now in puberty.
Your muscles.
What about it?
That night they joked around as usual, but suddenly a strange sound was heard outside. This made Richard promise that he would kill anything that could hurt
So
Emmeline.
many things I don't understand. Like, or he would have come over to meet us and say hello.
The next day, Richard tried to play a song he remembered. Then the two of them joked around as usual.
Counts. It's how you do it.
Wait, Richard, that's strange. You'll never know what's gonna happen. Just Richard, I'm getting angry.
Then Emmeline tried to enter the forest on the island and found a statue there, covered in blood. This made Emmeline scared, and she told Richard everything she saw.
Richard,
What is it? What happened?
I saw him.
Who?
However, Richard, who heard this, was very angry, because Emmeline had entered the forest without his permission. That night, Emmeline woke up after having a nightmare. Richard immediately hugged Emmeline and said that he would always protect her. Then Emmeline woke up again when she felt something breathing on her body. It turned out that it was Richard who was going to kiss her. Emmeline immediately asked Richard to leave. This made Richard become indifferent to her. Richard chose to dance on the beach. He immediately chased Emmeline away when she approached him because he was angry with her.
Leave me alone!
One day, a ship passed by. This prompted Richard to immediately light a signal fire. Unfortunately, the ship had already left before Richard could light it. Richard became furious with Emmeline because she was too close to light the signal fire. He also threatened to leave her alone there. However, when Richard boarded his boat, he seemed to have difficulty controlling it, which made Emmeline very happy with his stupidity. Then the two of them mocked each other. Finally, Emmeline accidentally threw a coconut right at Richard's head. This further angered Richard until he kicked Emmeline out of his hut. Because of this, Emmeline now had to live outside the hut alone, while Richard watched her from inside.
Strange, I'll get you for this.
Find some other place to live.
I said I was sorry, Richard.
Until one day, something bad happened to Emmeline. After stepping on a poisonous shellfish, he fell into a weak sleep. This made Richard very disappointed in himself because he couldn't keep his promise to protect Emmeline forever. After that, Richard immediately took Emmeline to a stone statue in the forest. There, Richard asked God to heal Emmeline immediately. Then he promised not to let Emmeline experience something like that again. And finally, a miracle happened. Emmeline regained consciousness, and they began to apologize to each other.
Our Father, please don't make him never wake up. I didn't. Emma, you all right?
From then on, the two of them became closer. They also began to realize the feelings they had felt for each other. Eventually, they started farming for the first time. A few months later, Emmeline was seen to really like eating large portions. That's why Richard asked her to control her appetite. But Emmeline herself couldn't control it at all. One day, Emmeline refused Richard's invitation to farm. She also explained that she felt something in her stomach. However, because they didn't have the knowledge, they assumed the child in Emmeline's womb was just the effect of Emmeline's illness. One day, Emmeline wasn't in the hut. This panicked Richard, who immediately set out to find her. Upon arriving in the forest, Richard saw a tribe there performing a sacrificial ritual. This frightened Richard, who fled. He then found Emmeline experiencing contractions. Eventually, Emmeline gave birth to a child whom they named Paddy because Paddy had been instrumental in their survival up to that point.
Answer it!
They were then at a loss when it came time to feed the child. Whatever they gave him, he refused to eat. Emmeline immediately picked him up, and the child instinctively drank Emmeline's milk.
Feed him.
What do they look like?
I don't want to talk.
They continued to care for their child with sincerity until little Paddy grew into a strong child. One day, they saw an approaching ship. It turned out to be Arthur, who had been searching for them for years. But now, Richard and Emmeline were no longer interested in calling the ship, now that they were living happily there. Arthur was also completely unaware that they were Richard and Emmeline. When he looked through the telescope, he saw a baby they were carrying. That's why Arthur left the island again. Richard then invited Emmeline and her child back to the previous island because he was worried that the native tribe there would disrupt their survival. However, upon arriving at the island, Emmeline refused to enter, still traumatized by Paddy's death in the past. Therefore, Richard immediately went there himself, while taking some bananas that would be their future food supply. Then, Emmeline invited Richard to board the lifeboat. While waiting for Richard, who was collecting bananas, however, Emmeline fell asleep. She regained consciousness when little Paddy threw his boat oar. Richard, seeing their ship moving away, immediately jumped into the sea and swam towards his ship. But unfortunately, suddenly a shark appeared and wanted to eat him. Emmeline, seeing this, immediately threw the oar she was holding so the shark would move away from Richard. However, Emmeline's choice ultimately made them difficult. Because now they no longer had a paddle there, Richard had to try to retrieve the paddle but still failed.
See? Hear it?
Until one day, Richard and Emmeline woke up and saw that their child had eaten a poisonous fruit. They immediately tried to remove the fruit. But unfortunately, little Paddy had already eaten some of the fruit. This made Richard and Emmeline choose to eat the fruit too, because they didn't want to have to continue living without their child. But suddenly, Arthur's ship passing there saw the lifeboat Richard and Emmeline were using. Arthur immediately asked his crew to approach the lifeboat.
Are they dead?
When they arrived, they all thought that Richard, Emmeline, and their child were dead. However, when they checked their pulses, they were still alive. And at that time, they were just asleep. Because the effect of the fruit doesn't kill someone, it only makes them fall asleep for a few moments.